All right, welcome back to the Artist Connection podcast. This is Matt Kasar with a very special guest today. So excited to bring you Taylor Dayne. Welcome.
Hi, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing great.
Wonderful. How are you doing today?
This is an absolute. Well, I live in Pennsylvania, so I have the Northeast allergies hitting me now, which is hitting everybody in this in this part of the world. But otherwise, I mean, fantastic.
Yeah, right. Get on your nasal crom and you can get on your meds. Absolutely.
Now, how do you deal with that? You're on the road now. I know you have a little bit of time off now, but you're going to be back on the road May 29th, and you're going through a lot of different regions and a lot of different states. How do you stay healthy on the road?
The biggest thing is sleep. I know everybody's like, and I'm like, I have to tell you, I go in, if I red eye, which I tend to do, and just depends if we're flying, busing. It always just depends. When I'm in the East Coast, I get to, I happen to catch up with some folks during that time. I'm obviously born and raised in New York.
Yep.
So I try to incorporate my children being back east with me. And, touring in the summer is a lot different than touring during the middle of the year, and how I handle things. But in the summer, it's a free-for-all. I got kids now. I have 13-year-old kids. I have twins. So I put them in camp now a couple of weeks, and then they come on the road with me a couple of weeks. And then right now they hate going on the road, so they're just like, leave me here, leave me there. So, my East Coast runs, that's what I'll be doing and bombing around, as you can see, in Pennsylvania and Philly and all over. But, sleep is the big component for me. Sleep, rest, and, my voice is, I carry it around with me 24 hours. So that's the biggest thing, is to shut up.
Yeah,
Be quiet.
I bet it is.
Mm-hmm.
I bet it is. Now, how long did it take for you to learn that? When you were just starting out, when you were on the road, was life different back then?
Well, it always depends on how many shows you're doing and then what's required during the day. When you're just beginning, and, I happen to be, knock on wood, have an incredible climb incredibly quickly. So that means that whole pop, the pop sensation of it all means that you're traveling incessantly, months and months and months on end. And, I don't, unfortunately, at the end of the day, get to put my guitar back in the case. My instrument's my mouth.
Yeah.
And what was required was morning, noon. I was doing interviews in the morning, radio in the morning, and we didn't have cell phones in 1988. I know it sounds bizarre, but we didn't. And I think the first one that had one was Trump. So we were at every, I was trying, we would sit for hours and make phone calls, and I would have to show up, and every, think about every radio station I had to show up. We didn't have podcasts, that didn't exist. So a lot of it was physically draining, but, at the end of the day, that's why when you're a pop star at 22 years old, it feels better. So, you're just running around, and, I'm in city and city, and I broke in Europe first, so I was in Europe, and it wasn't uncommon to be in a couple of countries a week, 2 to 3 countries a week, wow. Different countries, and a lot of TV, and that's how it is. And, I learned the hard way, we party and having a good time and experiencing, this newfound fame and stardom, and how my music is affecting, thousands, millions of people. And, you just learn over time if you want to keep your voice. Now, I'm classically trained, so on some level, I knew my vocalizing, and it saved me. I'm operatically trained, so I understood that this I want to save and preserve and have for the rest of my life. And how do I do that? Well, one is stop drinking, boozing it till 4 in the morning and screaming, because I got a big, loud mouth, too. So the first thing I love doing is laughing, screaming, joking around, and the last thing you can do is do that and do 20 interviews, and you have to find your pace. So I always call it a go-at-your-own-pace party, but that's my big thing, is I pace it out. I'm usually just pretty still and keep things together. If I'm doing, those 9 shows, you got to pace it out. You got to keep it together. There's a lot of energy goes into it.
Well, I had the opportunity to see you in Orlando at Epcot at the end of April. And just amazing. Like you said, you did 9 shows in a row, 3 shows a day, Friday, Saturday, Sunday down there. And I got to see the first one. Wow, what struck me, and it literally brought a tear to my eye, not only because the songs are nostalgic, but you were singing like you were at Carnegie Hall, and I respected that about you and absolutely loved it. And I haven't stopped talking about it since, really.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, it's a wonderful thing when they get talent like us, and they hire us, and they put us during their festivals, and they have, normally I do their wine and the food and wine during that time of year, and this one is their flower, I don't know, flower expo, chef, whatever. So it's pretty cool when they do, a few weeks of having, talent in there. So, and you guys get the excitement and the joy, and, the soundtrack of your lives in some levels, depending.
Well, 1987 is very near and dear to my heart. That is when I graduated high school, and of course that's
Yeah.
when your first song broke, and it just
Yeah.
broke in a big way. I mean, my God, were you expecting
Yeah.
that out of the gate like that? I know you did some work before that, but then all of a sudden, your first official big one comes out, and it's just
Yeah.
huge.
I mean, you're never expecting it, but you're building, those 20 years prior is
Yep.
what, it's never overnight stardom, but you're just, this is the big hope. No, you can't imagine, you just can't. But at the same time, it's the big dream, right? That's it.
Well, you did it, and the songs are timeless, and hit after hit after hit after that. I mean, your greatest hits can fill several records and have. And I know
Aw,
now
yeah,
you,
yeah,
you have
yeah.
a new one. You have a new. And I'm not just saying that. I'm really not. I honestly,
No,
I'm honestly a fan.
I've been very, yeah. Listen, I was inducted in the Hall of Fame a year and a half ago, so I'm doing something right
I
at some
saw that
level, and
with
it's
Joan
that
Jett.
marked. Yeah, we it's 25 years, so it's pretty incredible, and I'm still here, and I'm doing what I love, and it's bigger and badder, it's pretty great, and working on a TV series right now, and my book, and this is where we get to go, so it's exciting.
Wow, your book, is it going to be? Is it about your life from the beginning to now, or what are you going to focus
Well,
on?
I'm going to start. Listen, I like to tell stories, so it's kind of anecdotal, but it'll be, which that means is short stories about those times that are profound, and they show it. Whether it's a relationship or my first moment in the big arena, which from playing "Tell It to My Heart" in a club where it first started to opening up for Michael, to you know just the moments, sitting in Arista's offices signing, and many things, the profound moments in childhood for me that made things change for me.
Things are so different, aren't they, from the late '80s to what we have now? Just in terms
Oh
of
yeah.
being a fan, the amount of information that we have at our fingertips about our favorite artists and about their life, and the scrutiny. I mean, have you
hmm
felt any of that through the '90s and into 2000 and everything?
Well, the funny thing is, I broke in 88, so 87, 88.
Yeah.
I spent the first 2 years primarily just in Europe, and this kind of paparazzi and fandom was really insane there. They didn't have the amount of rags, and certainly we didn't have the internet, and the access, that immediate access that we have now. But the paparazzi was insane. They always followed us on motorbikes and were very aggressive. And then of course it came to here, but this didn't exist here. Didn't exist. It was not the same. So once it started here, and that's when popular music kind of died here, I would say, in the mid 90s, and not until like late 90s, where you're talking 98, 99, where you had Britney popping out again, in syncs and, but all that stuff, it's when it really started coming back again, and then you started getting this wave. So, I experienced hell yeah, but differently, because you can't compare the social aspect and the social networking aspect. It just didn't exist then.
How do you get noticed back then? I know you said Europe, and Europe a lot
Straight
of
up
times
what we did.
just going
Tons of
out
radio,
and doing it.
and going and touring and showing up, like honestly, tons of radio, tons of promotion. You had the record company behind you, but you sold more records, not necessarily singles.
Right.
Although I can't necessarily say that for Arista, because a lot of that was, they were a very single-generated label.
So getting out there, pounding the pavement, getting your face out there and your name out there, and then it just grows.
Well, that's the power of radio.
Yeah, it is. I wanted to ask you about this, and I won't name any names because I respect anybody that gets to a certain level, and I go to a lot of
Sure.
shows. I go to a lot of. My daughter is going to be 16 in a couple months, and I take her to all the pop shows, all the big shows of the day.
Good for
And
you.
when you take a family of four to a show like that, sometimes you're paying $500 or $600 to get in the door,
Easily.
and a lot of them aren't singing. They have the backtracks, and sometimes the microphone falls into the audience, and you still hear their voice. And as a music fan, I'm having a real hard time getting past that. And I try not to be old man Kesar to my daughter. I want her to have fun and be part of the spectacle that she's part of and what she loves. But that's another thing I just appreciated about you, that you were there, and I kept nudging her like, listen to her. She's singing. she's been at this for a long time, and she's up there singing. Why can't the other folks do it? So as a performer, what does that do to you? Do you wish there was more of the realness in the.
You know,